Welcoming naturalised Australians to her city today, Alderman Laurie Manning was herself on new turf, acting as Lake Macquarie Mayor. After the resignation of Doug Carley from the city's top job on Thursday, the Deputy Mayor has stepped temporarily into his shoes.
It's a challenge, and I never pass up a challenge.
As to who'll be the Mayor for the remaining 15 months of this council's term is to be decided at a by-election expected to be held on July 24th. That date will be confirmed at tonight's council meeting. Alderman Manning believes the mayoral position will be fiercely contested.
In my opinion, there will be quite a few candidates running, possibly as many as 10.
After the controversy surrounding Doug Carley's departure, a number of aldermen believe that as of next term, mayors should not be popularly elected, but chosen by his or her peers.
The situation in the 170-odd councils within the state, only about 7 elect their mayor by popular vote. So it must be right for 163 other council and shire areas.
Scott Bevan, NBN News.
Singleton Shire Council gave the OK last night. 165 hectares of Hunter River alluvial flats will be mined near Ravensworth. The move will extend coal and allied operations by 10 years. It's estimated there is around $1 billion worth of coal under the ground. But protest group Minewatch is incensed. Chairman Jeff Marshall saying it starts a precedent. If granted to one company, there's a strong possibility others will apply. Minewatch is arguing it's a threat to the region's richest farming areas. But Singleton Council has called for a postponement to any additional river flat mining in the region. It's asked the state government for an 8-year moratorium. That is yet to be confirmed by the minister. Meanwhile, Coal and Allied will build a 4-kilometre levee bank around the proposed mining site. Peter Iron, NBN News.
Although in draft form at this stage, advertising space in the new brochure is selling well. Due to hit tourist information centres by August, the publication is a joint effort between Newcastle's Tourism Chief Horst Ondrelat and his Lake Macquarie counterpart Mike Ridley. Although both cities have produced similar brochures in the past, it's the first time they've joined forces in a venture financed by the advertising dollar.
What we're trying to produce is something which is really reflective of the second largest population base in New South Wales. We encourage everybody, if they can, to possibly advertise in the book. Everybody in some way does benefit from the tourism dollar coming to the area.
People don't see a border between Newcastle and Lake Macquarie, same as from the product point of view, and we have a lot of operators who were sick and tired in going into 2 publications rather than 1.
Together, Newcastle and Lake Macquarie attract around $103 million a year in tourism revenue. But both cities believe there's still potential for growth.
We are building and growing and gradually introducing, I guess, new concepts, new desires, new techniques of doing things. And they're starting to be accepted all the way through. And I think it's just a natural progression.
Putting them both together, I think it gives a magnificent package we can sell out there to the people.
Melinda Smith, NBN News.
Former Cessnock boy Matthew Johns has been impressive at 5'8", snaring a spot in first grade. The 21-year-old re-signed with Newcastle today after turning down several other offers.
I'm there till the end of 95 now, so it's up to me, and thing is now to get on and play good football and hold my spot.
And hold his spot he has. For the game against the Sharks, Johns will wear the number 6 jersey. Hagan moves to centre. In an interesting ploy, Godden is on the wing with O'Davis at fullback. It's a young pack. McCormack's unexpected call-up for the Blues means Chapman moves into hooker. Injury has put 5 potential first graders out of the reckoning. 3 players are on rep duty.
It's one of the things that come along in football and one of the true tests of football depth. And as you can see on paper, we've still been able to come up with a very, very strong football team. And
Coach Waite is furious. The game kicks off at 7:30 at Caltex Field, with the team not expected to return home to well after midnight.
Commonwealth Bank employees met at various venues across the Hunter. One of the largest gatherings was in Newcastle. The 410 attending were kept informed with a televised link of the Sydney meeting. The work stoppage left 70% of all Hunter branches closed for at least the first 2 hours of trading.
We've had a large roll up here today of people who are concerned about their jobs, and let's forget about pay increases, that sort of thing really, and say we want a job.
Of the Hunter's 900 bank employees, 180 will lose their jobs. The hardest hit will be managerial positions, with 80% of branch managers in the Hunter's 35 banks to go. For Leanne Handley, a bank employee, the cutbacks serve a double blow. Her husband is a deputy regional manager with the Commonwealth. Also, the Newcastle-based Northern Country Zone Administration Office, which services Newcastle to Tweed Heads, will close around August this year. Its 40 staff will be either redeployed or face voluntary or compulsory redundancy. Where and if that office is relocated remains unknown at this date. Catherine Lamond, NBN News.
Seven-year-old John Gosling was recovering in the John Hunter Hospital today after his ordeal. Yesterday, as John was riding his bicycle to school in the Newcastle suburb of Cardiff, he was hit by a four-wheel drive.
I just remember coming out of the park and it went all black and I could just hear the car over me.
John has several cracked ribs. Luckily, he was wearing a helmet. It took most of the impact.
Because if I didn't have my helmet on, I could have had brain damage or killed myself.
John's mum, Debbie, is urging other cyclists to always take the simple precaution of wearing a helmet.
It's got to fit. It's no good if it doesn't fit or it's just sliding around, but just make sure that they always wear their helmet.
Organised by the Mid-North Coast Children's Services Group, the massive turn-up at Opal Cove Resort proved that the first conference held last year had set a high standard for the event. 12 early childhood experts are at the conference called Focus on Quality in Children's Services. Today they talked about the dire need for an accreditation scheme for child workers. The speakers at the conference were calling for a more professional image to be conveyed by the industry. They want the public to know childcare is more than finger painting and singing nursery rhymes. The speakers and workers said their job is a vital part of the early education of children. Workshops were also held showing the latest methods in young child education. At one stage, the area was cordoned off to protect the public from petrol and diesel fumes mysteriously leaking from the centre. Late this afternoon, the exact location of the fumes was still not found. This was despite a team being brought up from Sydney to find the source. The leak was narrowed down, however, to the general area of pipes leading out of the mobile fuel distribution centre in Leicester Street. Police and the fire brigade took action to prevent any danger being posed by the flammable fumes. Mobil has been cooperating fully with the police and workers in their bid to solve the problem.
Yeah, it was, mate. She had no enemies. You know, as far as I know, she was well liked. She was a good mother. She was a good wife. Something like this happens.
Sandra's husband Shane spent most of the day with his family. Although separated, the couple had remained close and have 2 children.
They're young, you know, they're young, so they're not really understanding. But they loved their mother, of course, and they're upset.
Family members and friends rallied, trying to come to terms with the loss.
She was beautiful. I loved her. Really loved her. She'd do anything for anyone. She helped me through some of the hardest times in my life, and I did the same for her. She was beautiful.
An extensive police search and crime scene investigation swung into action over the weekend. The reality only now sinking into the normally quiet community. Local school children were counselled in class.
It's just unreal, you know. She was there on Friday night. I waved to her and she wasn't there Saturday morning.
A post-mortem examination has established that Sandra Millwood died of numerous skull fractures. Meanwhile, a man charged with murder, 29-year-old Paul Richardson from Curry, accompanied police to the scene this morning. Richardson will appear in Maitland Local Court on Friday. Andrew Lobb, NBN News.
For an industry with the potential to turn over $100 million annually, oyster farming has hit tough times. Last year's winter kill, followed by this year's heat kill, devastated hundreds of farmers stretching from the far north coast to Bateman's Bay in the south. Natural Resource Minister Ian Causley promised aid under the Rural Assistance Scheme, but the authority said the disasters didn't qualify for funding. A report was prepared by the Fisheries Department and oyster growers, asking for help from both state and federal governments. That report is now before Treasury, but today Oyster Farmers Association chief said he held little hope for any assistance, claiming the government had turned its back on a crippled industry. And for Port Stephens growers, the decision to restrict the movement of Pacific oysters has almost sealed their fate. Farmers taking advantage of warmer conditions have traditionally moved their crops to northern rivers. The issue has divided the industry. The association supporting the argument that if adequate inspections are met, multi-estuary farming should be encouraged. In a final plea for financial aid, which they claim they're entitled to, oyster growers plan to meet with Premier Fay in July. Meanwhile, they're still awaiting the official response from Treasury. Melinda Smith, NBN News.
Get together a bunch of trigger-happy, streetwise tough guys, and they're just the kids, and pit them against a highly trained crew of law enforcers, and what you get is a match that shot the lights out of the Terminator game at the Time Zone video parlour. Officers from the Newcastle and Hamilton patrols took on a group of high school students who outshot, outdrove, and generally thumped their opponents. But then again, the video games are their turf, and the police were attempting to meet the youngsters on a friendly footing. The bad guys on the screens went down in droves, and even if the police didn't really do too well on the point score, everyone went away a winner.
At the Salvation Army's SOS headquarters in Wharf Road, the Knight's Jason Martin proved he knew his way around a pool table as well as a footy ground. You've seen Jason on the rugby league field. What's he like as a pool shark?
All right.
So who's winning?
He is.
But the purpose of the day was not all fun and games. Along with the Falcons' Paul Kuiper and surfing champ Mark Richards, Martin and a host of street kid competitors were trying to get some public awareness points on the board for Sunday's Red Shield appeal. This year, the Salvos will spend more than $3.6 million on welfare services in Newcastle as demand from recession victims reaches record levels.
The increase this year, it's up to about 40% increase on what it was before. People wanting help from places like us.
The Salvos hope to raise $452,000 in this region on Sunday because, like those they help, the organisation is in desperate need.
I wouldn't like to say at this point of time, definitely we would cut out this operation, but it certainly would have to be looked at and see whether or not we would need to rely more on volunteers rather than paid workers.
Scott Bevan, NBN News.
Stephen and Nancy Katsikas have had 2 houses on the outskirts of Argenton for sale for the last 7 months. Little interest has been shown by buyers, even though one has never been lived in. Earlier this month, the Katsikas thought their problem may have been solved when a contract to buy one of the houses was signed. But that fell through when problems arose with finance.
The banks basically said that they couldn't get mortgage insurance because of the lead problem and the possibility of no resale value.
Mr. Katsikas has since discovered that other potential buyers have encountered the same problem. Real estate agents in the area have also confirmed that some institutions have a different lending policy when it comes to houses in Boolaroo or Argenton. Mr. Katsikas has distributed around 1,000 pamphlets which state in no uncertain terms that he's had enough. He's called a meeting for 7 o'clock on Wednesday night.
Let's get the facts, let's find out where the problem lies. If there's no lead problem in this area, well, why are we getting discriminated against? Why is council discriminating against everyone with a 149 certificate? And if there is a problem, then let's find where it lies and get together as a community and fight the thing.
Jodie McKay, NBN News.
In a bid to give about 50 police now working in Sydney a break, the department has come up with a rotational transfer plan that would see the same number of officers uprooted from Newcastle and replaced. Many of the police now ranked as senior constables have foregone promotion in preference of staying in Newcastle for a better lifestyle. Mr Gill, no if, buts or maybes the policy will go ahead?
Yes.
David Gill, the Police Department's Human Resources Manager, addressed officers at Police Association meetings in Newcastle and Gosford today. Mr Gill pointed out that living and travelling costs for police with little prospect of transfer from Sydney had made life unbearable for some and insisted that it's time officers here shared the hardship. The transfer system due to start in July will cost $3 million to implement in its first year, an outlay that won't solve the problem of discontented police but merely shift it onto another group of officers, and police could expect to be moved every 3 years.
Provided you're under 50, you're in the firing line, and hardships, I would certainly call getting on a train at 4 a.m. in the morning to be in Sydney by 7 to start work a hardship. It's either that or having to sell your house or rent in Sydney.
In terms of spreading the burden around several hundred people and rather just a small number, we think that we do overall win, and that in time these people, when their resentment, which I understand has gone down, they'll see that we are being fairer to a broader group of people.
Mr Gill acknowledged that most police couldn't afford to live in Sydney. Their only other options, to resign or commute. The association, however, will fight the plan.
He's breaking the whole family structure down of police in the Newcastle district. It affects their wives and children. I'm sure any woman in the area who's got a couple of small kids doesn't want her husband away from home for 17 hours a day just going to and from work.
David Evans is no stranger to the Managing Director's chair. For the past 2 months he's been an acting boss, but now he's permanently at the helm after 3 years with the organisation.
It's a challenging task, but I'm definitely not daunted.
Hunter Water has been through some enormous changes in recent years: corporatisation, streamlining the user pay system and shedding jobs to improve efficiency. While there's no plans for further job cuts, Mr Evans says he won't be deviating greatly from the path trodden by his predecessor, Paul Broad.
What we've done in the last 3 years is have a whole program of reform of the corporation, from the management structure through to the way we interact with government through corporatisation, our relationship with the pricing tribunal. That is the right direction to be taking, and we'll continue it.
And the 40-year-old father of 3 says the public will be kept informed as to what the corporation's up to. What the new Managing Director is keen to shut off, however, are the odours from Burwood Beach Sewerage Works. It's one of his top priorities. Scott Bevan, NBN News.
When he began to see smoke drift up around his feet, the driver called the fire brigade using his mobile phone. By the time the brigade arrived at the top of Arimba Hill, the motor of the truck was almost completely destroyed. The prime mover was only a few months old and on its first trip to Sydney from its Toowoomba base in Queensland. The driver saved his freight, worth thousands of dollars, by pulling off the freeway and disconnecting the trailer. The fire disrupted commuter traffic for more than an hour. It's unknown if the rig, valued at more than $100,000, was insured.
The change in time will actually work in the Falcons' favour. The extra hours will give Al Green a little bit more time for his nose to toughen up. Last week he played with strapping after suffering a nasty break, and he's the first to admit it did slow him down.
The first mask I had on, I couldn't see over the top of my forehead, so that bothered my shooting underneath the basket, and couldn't see the ball handling. So this week I'm going to try without it. Just pray that I don't get hit in it again.
So without the mask this week, there'll be no jibes of being tagged Hannibal Lecter, though Green wouldn't mind chewing up the opposition. Speaking of new nicknames, and the lanky Terry Dozier is rapidly becoming known as the Flyer. Each week his slam dunk credits are increasing.
I think it has a lot to do with the aggressive play that we've brought to the team now, and then you got to have the athletes able to do it. And one thing that Everett's proven time and time again after winning the slam dunk contest, that he's a quality dunker, and with me being 6'9", I better know how to dunk.
Paul Kuiper's injured knee is well on the mend, and Simon O'Donnell is rapidly gaining confidence after last year's foot injury. Coach Tom Wisman believes the game against Magic will be more psychological than physical.
It's the only team that we haven't beaten of the top 5 teams last year, so we're looking to get a win up, and certainly it'll be a big win for us if we do.
The game gets underway at midday on Sunday at the Newcastle Entertainment Centre. Brunker has been struggling all week with the knee he injured in the second State of Origin game. X-rays reveal he cracked the kneecap, and although he can run in a straight line, he's finding difficulty changing direction at speed. While Brunker has been working to be fit, Knights prop Paul Harrigan has been taking it easy. He has to play against Parramatta on Sunday, then back up on Monday night with the State side. However, he is adamant he won't be holding back in the club game. However, he might not play as big a role as he did last time in the deciding game with the Blues.
if I start, I'll be just probably fairly similar to the first game, I'd say, where I'll probably go for 20 minutes and he'll take me off. He uses the interchange really well, and I think he'll do that again.
But whether Harrigan will be putting on the Knights' armour again next year is still up in the air. Some big-name Sydney clubs have made no secret of their desire to sign him up.
Anyone who has approached me, I've just been telling them the same thing, that roughly after the representative sequence is over, we'll start negotiations then. But until then, there's been nothing, and I haven't spoke to anyone.
The Central Coast Zone final was played at the Sydney Football Stadium as a curtain raiser to tonight's South's Canterbury game, and the Terrigal side warmed to the occasion first, scoring a try in the opening minutes. Henry Kendall responded with some skilled play, Aaron West slipping away vital passes. Henry Kendall looked to then snatch control of the game, but the Seaside boys responded with a barrage of tries. The final score, Terrigal 26, Henry Kendall 18. The game can be seen in full on NBN tomorrow morning at 6:30.
His golf drive may not be perfect, but the Japanese ambassador was spot on with his speech.
I have wanted to come to Kosovo for a long time because I was told that for some years now, ambassadors of Japan in Canberra have made it a rule to visit this beautiful city.
Mr Hasegawa and his wife Teruko were the guests of honour at a dinner of the Australia-Japan Society last night. The ambassador gave a lengthy speech at the Bonville International Golf Club on the future relations of the two nations.
The need to understand each other more and better. A greater degree of mutual understanding will contribute to the building of a strong and long-lasting relationship.
And today it was off to the golf club again. This time, however, it was a chance for Mr Hasegawa and Teruko to try out the Bonville course. The ambassador and his wife drove off to finish the golf course before leaving the city he described as paradise to return to Canberra.
The Rand has breezed to the lead at the 200 mark over Ballymooreen. Northwalk is getting home very strongly and looks a danger. The Rand is shortening stride. Northwalk is swamping him close to home. Northwalk is coming home a mile the better. There's a big win. Northwalk raced away to beat the Rand.
The winner, Northwalk, paid a very handsome $14.30 and $4.10. Gary Harley's tip, the Rand, finished second. The trifecta paid $444.30.
These people have skills they never want to use, but to keep their rescue techniques in tone, 26 teams have been competing in the Hunter Valley 6th Annual Combined Mines Rescue Competition.
Basically to test the mines rescue people to make sure that they're ready for a real occurrence when it does happen.
On the surface and underground at the Hunter Valley No. 1 mine, the teams of 8 have been competing in a series of lifelike scenarios, ranging from extracting victims from crushed vehicles to saving unconscious workmates from a fire. This year's competition has attracted teams from not only around Australia, but a contingent from Indonesia, the first overseas entrants. And the Indonesians say they're in it for more than just the competition.
The best one is come for learn from of your rescue people in more experience in here.
The winner of the Open Cut division is the German Creek team from Queensland, while the top team in the underground competition is composite number 1 from the Hunter Valley. Scott Bevan, NBN News. After the fiery protests that greeted him in Canberra, Prime Minister Kiet today found himself at the centre of a different sort of heat at the Bayswater Power Station near Muswellbrook. Mr Kiet arrived amid tight security at the Pacific Power facility with an entourage of almost 40.
It's a great pleasure now to welcome you to Bayswater.
The Prime Minister wanted to tour Bayswater and learn about its technology because he believes one of the keys to rebuilding Vietnam is a modern electricity network. And Mr Kiet recognised Australia's help in developing his country.
We highly appreciate Australia's assistance in this regard, as well as the cooperation from Australian businessmen in Vietnam.
Pacific Power already has connections with Vietnam, acting as a consultant for the installation of 1,500 kilometres of transmission lines in a project worth over $300 million.
I think the future is wonderful for us because growth in the Southeast Asian region is quite high, and we're a world-class utility looking for business in the design and construction and project management area in this region.
It's a view shared by Mr Kiet, who says his country's doors are open to Australian trade and investment.
I must say that my visit to Australia has been so far successful, especially in improving trade and investment cooperation between Vietnam and Australia.
Scott Bevan, NBN News.
Police and ambulance officers were called to the North Belmont Caravan Park just after 1 o'clock this afternoon. Inside the caretaker's residence, a woman aged in her 30s was treated for shock after being bound, gagged and robbed. Police say the woman had been confronted by 2 men who pushed her down and ransacked the house. Although upset, the woman managed to give police a description of her attackers. At least one of the men was seen escaping on foot. Investigations are continuing.
In the closing minutes of the game, South East Melbourne were well clear. However, Peter Harvey continued to pressure the opposition. He slipped a pass away and was trying to set up a screen for Michael Johnson when he was struck.
Well, I remember passing the ball, and then after that I was just seeing stars for a while. I didn't know what happened.
The referee let the game roll on. Harvey finally had to be subbed off. He sustained muscular damage to his neck and arm, along with some internal bruising around his collarbone. Physiotherapist Lee Jensen is working hard to have him back on the court by the weekend. Late yesterday, Falcons management referred the incident to the tribunal, and they wasted no time advising Curl that he had to appear.
It's a physical game, but when you intentionally get hit, he was obviously going to hit me with his elbow. There's no two ways about it, but I'm happy that action's been taken up.
It will be Curl's third appearance in as many years, and if found guilty, he faces a lengthy suspension.